Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Beth Hassett Sabbath Fellowship. Our building is locked. We are shopping for a new building. Call 612-315-6778 before you attend. We're trying to get something going for the fall, find a building. We do for the philosophy, not the story itself. I don't do 2 hours of stories every week. I do the philosophy behind the eschatology, the end of days, what you need to know, your reality, our existence, things like that. I try not to be disparate. We're Beth Hassett Sabbath Fellowship. Russia is prowling right now. The bear is everywhere prowling, and all the news stories in the last cycle here have been about Russia. Why? Well, it's about Mother Russia. It's about selling oil and selling arms, and it's important. So the bear is prowling, and you'll see a lot of those slides. And I love Slim Pickens, in that World War II type war movie, the Cold War era movie of years ago, riding the bomb down. Well, Putin has been building some incredible planes here lately. He has a flying Kremlin, a couple of planes that can take him anywhere, so he can run any war from any place. And he has the fastest and the most advanced military weapons out there right now. I'm telling you that it's to protect Mother Russia, to protect oil business, arms business, things like that. But he raised fears when he's been advertising all sorts of weaponry lately. And he really has this intention to run the world. So as you've seen the three crazy guys go out into space lately, and other issues, Putin is doing this because he knows that if things get really, really bad, you don't want to be on the Earth when the nukes are going off. So he wants to be up in space or close enough to it that he can run the world from there. So just keep that in mind. He's introduced a lot of weaponry. We're going to discuss that today. So if you want to hear the story, the news about this, Eric Stackelbuck has done a nice job. Stan Johnson did a video on this. John Haller did the best video, his midweek video of last week, just before Av9. So keep that in mind that those are good sources, but this is the story behind the story. So what's going on? So he's got the best weaponry right now. He's bragging that his war machine can now deliver an unpreventable strike against its enemies. So, as always, I'm going to highlight that he loves Mother Russia, whether you call it Eurasia or Mother Russia or whatever. He wants to protect his oil business and grow his arms business. And so he's doing that, and he's warning the world that he's ready to go at any point in time. So after the meeting with Putin, Biden has really shown his weakness, especially with Israel. So the meeting occurred on Av 7, which is just before Av 9, the worst day in Israel's history. And then, but that's 6/16 of 21. Then on Av 9, there was the fast day. Then right after that, the Kremlin announced that it's run out of patience with Israel. There are air raids in Syria, and that basically Russia is saying, you're all done doing that. Now, Putin had an agreement with Trump and with Netanyahu, but that's all done. Trump is gone, Netanyahu is gone, and the new Yahoos don't have any play with Putin. And Putin is going to be the bear and be powerful right now. So he's advertising his power, and so it's just interesting. And he has his goals. I'm saying that his goals are not what you think they are. When you hear the people screaming, oh, Gog Magog war, we're going to have Ezekiel 38, 39. No, that's not the case, and I'll go through all of those things today. It's going to take a little bit of time, so stick with it. So once again, he showed up after a meeting with Biden, and Putin said, we're not going to allow this anymore. And so this is just, Moscow blames Jerusalem and remained critical of its conduct in Syria for a long time now, but it's all over, okay? It has areas of its own interest in Syria, and Moscow doesn't want Israel striking near those areas. And in some ways, it doesn't really want Iran touched either, but definitely not Syria. So Russia wants to control that sphere, and they've had their designs on it since well before 2011, many years ago, in fact, back in 1947, 48, 49, they were strong in that region, and then they fell apart as their nation fell apart, as the USSR fell apart. But Putin is strong down there, and I want you to see that sign up on the upper right-hand side, 2014. Just keep that in mind with the blood moon eclipses, okay? So he had to hit that. This is from Debkafile. That was then. This is now. Moscow is letting Israel know that its radar can track any Air Force operations emanating from the Jordan area. Advanced new Russian air defense systems are now operating in Syria. Moscow's blind eye gave Israel free rein for years. That's all done. That's over, okay? Putin is going to protect Mother Russia's properties, their oil business, their arms business, and he's going to do what Putin needs to do. He doesn't care, and nobody's going to stop him. So we're talking about the philosophy. These are not just the news stories. It's what's going on with prophecy, the Bible, and with Putin in the end of days. And this is our Russia brief. So the Russian bear on the worldwide prowl, well, according to Daniel 7, now keep in mind, Daniel 2 starts out with this head of gold and the chest of silver and things like that from Daniel 2. This is Daniel 7. These are the beasts. So we have the vision at night, and the first one was like a lion with eagle's wings, and so I'm doing that on purpose. It's like Great Britain and the USA. It had the eagle's wings, and as I watched, the wings were plucked off, and it was lifted off the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and the human heart was given to it. Then there was another animal, a second one, a bear, Medo-Persia. Sounds like Russia. And it raised itself up on one side and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and it was told, get up and gorge yourself with flesh. And after this I looked, and there was another one, like a leopard. That sounds like Germany, doesn't it? Yeah, it's Greece, but it's also Germany with bird's wings. I would argue France, the cock, and the animal had 4 heads and was given power to rule. After this I looked, and there was the dreadful animal, Rome, which morphed into the Holy Roman Empire and the Roman Church. And so that is still there today. Now, that's Daniel 7. So those are the 4 countries that we were talking about: Nebuchadnezzar, Medo-Persia, Cyrus, and then Greece with Alexander, and then Rome with the Caesars. But now we'll move forward, and I'm arguing this is future forward because it's Revelation 12 and 13. And the dragon, I'm arguing that's China too, it's Satan, was infuriated over the woman and went off to fight the rest of her children, those who obey God's commands and bear witness to Yeshua. That sounds like Moses. John wrote just like Moses. Then the dragon, China, stood on the seashore. That's like saying China stood on the edge of chaos and saw a beast come up out of the sea, out of the chaos, with 10 horns and 7 heads, and on its horns were 7 royal crowns, and on its head blasphemous names, the beast, which is the beast personally, the Antichrist, and the beast system. It's both, which I saw was like a leopard, okay, Germany, feet like those of a bear, Russia, and a mouth like that of a lion, Great Britain. And the dragon, China, gave its power and its throne, and that's Satan too, obviously it is both, gave it great authority. One of the heads of the beast appeared to have received a fatal wound, but his fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth followed after the beast in amazement. That's Revelation 12 and 13. So Russia was powerful as the USSR, and they dominated all of these Baltic states and all of these other Russian-type satellites from 1949 to 1989. Then it fell apart as the Berlin Wall fell down. As Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. It fell. Well, then Putin came back into power by 1999, and the man that works with him is his Neo-Rasputin, which is Alexander Dugin, and I've covered him for years. This is a Eurasian guy. This is a guy that loves Mother Russia. And so Putin so that's his mystic guy. Putin does all the chess playing, but Dugin is his chess master that works with him on protecting Mother Russia. So basically, Dugin hates Western civilization. He hates it, hates it, hates it. And he wants Eurasia to run the world. And Putin wants it that way too. So they love their Mother Russia. And so during the 20 years of Putin's rule, 1999 to present, the country has restored partly its power. And Russia restores its force only as a great geopolitical power, as a land power, hence the capital of Eurasia, the Eurasianism in general. You hear that? That's Mother Russia talk, okay? And so he thinks that they are forming this 4th political theory, which is kind of like Strauss's 4th turning. So Dugin thinks it's going to turn into the Eurasian century now. We'll see what happens. Okay? And that includes Syria. Russia has been prowling down there since really kind of 2011, but then it kicked in by 2014, 2015. And so it's all about the oil business and the military business. I mean, they can sell a lot of military hardware down there. So they want to have a place in this area. And also they want a warm weather port. They have Vladivostok, but that's way over on the eastern side, and they really don't have anything on the western side of Russia. So why not go south into the Middle East? and also it promotes commerce for Russia, which is important for them. They're only about 143 million people, and they want to have power in the world. So this is an article from the Center for Strategic and International Studies about Russia's corporate soldiers, and I'm going to want you to watch for a few things. One is loving Mother Russia, protecting the oil and arms businesses, and even though this is very new, really it kicks in around the time of the blood moon eclipses. So just watch for that. Okay, so their presence, open military interference, search for pretext to launch a military operation, concealed use of force, non-military means, opposing states. So they're always working for a new approach for achieving political and military goals. That's Russia. And rather than, the United States runs around from country to country basically to set up drug czars so that we can make money off the drug profits. Russia is military and oil, which are really core businesses in many different states. So off to the right-hand side here, you can see all the states: Iraq, Somalia, Syria, Afghanistan, Nigeria, many countries. So they're everywhere, and you can see how they have moved it up from 2014, 2015, and then now they are present in those areas. And so a number of countries where PMCs operated. You can see that on the lower left-hand side there. Very important statistics. Okay, so continuing on with this article, that the PMCs are only one tool in Moscow's efforts to expand its power and influence overseas. Way down the bottom, Ukraine has served as an important recent testing ground for PMCs beginning in 2014. And off to the right-hand side, you see the blood moon eclipses. So these time frames were something that Russia had to hit, and they hit it perfectly. And it was God's calendar. So the PMCs pose a threat to the United States by expanding Russia's political, military intelligence, and economic influence. Yeah, they do. They're on the prowl. Okay, and once again, it was 2014 was that time frame when they started to move into these areas. Okay, 2014, 2015, they hit their mark. The bear is on the prowl. And during that time frame, this evil man from Iran named Soleimani, and we'll see Suleiman popping up in a little while here too. He's from the 1500s, but from present days here, this man was killed in 2020, but he was General Qasem Soleimani, and he ran up to Russia twice. Once during July of 2015, and then late in 2015. And he said, we need help because we're losing against all the other forces that are down there in Syria. And the Kremlin, when asked about this, said, no, there wasn't a meeting. But there was. Soleimani ran up there twice to ask for intervention in Syria, and he got what he wanted. So Russia is doing what benefits Russia. So what does Russia gain from 5 years of fighting in Syria? Well, they want the oil business, they want the military business, they want a presence with these countries. They're anti-Western, and so they're in their sphere, so to speak, okay? And so everybody knows that. It's kind of like the friend of my friend is my enemy, or the enemy of my friend is also my, I don't know, you know how it works. And Russia is playing against friends and enemies, and these are ancient hatreds, okay? These go way back. So Russia has introduced this new Mach 8 or 9 potentially missile. Okay, it's a Zircon missile, 20 seconds to react. That's it. And it can swerve and strike. It's amazing. Okay, so they just announced this. It's I can't remember the Mach speed is 8 or 9, and it's not that big of a missile, but it can have a nuke on it. And so just keep that in mind. Putin announced it just the other day here. So Russia is big right now, and guess what? Russia is selling this to India. Now India hates China, so go figure, And so they've got some of the fastest planes out there. They've got some of the best missile systems. And they don't want Israel to have free reign in Syria anymore. So that's interesting. So, but the Indian connection is so interesting because Russia doesn't want to fight with China because they're the dragon, but they do want India they want to make money. Okay, so it's money, guys. Okay, Putin is a master chess player. He likes to win and make money. Okay, so once again, the strategy started years ago where he wanted to get into Sevastopol, which would be, it was owned by the Ukraine, and it was in Crimea, and so he just took it over. And he's going after other Ukrainian areas too. If there are enough Russians in that area, he'll just take it over again. So poor Ukraine. That's the border between the Eastern Orthodox and the Western Church, the Roman Catholic Church. And so it has to do with oil and the Hagia Sophia and the pride of the Eastern Orthodox Church. So basically, this is a long, long time ago, back in March of 2021, where basically the Ukraine was ready to go to war against Russia. Well, that would have brought everybody into it. And so somebody said, stop it, okay? But ultimately, Russia wants to head down towards, do you see where the arrow is that I said in there? That's Istanbul. That's where the Hagia Sophia is. Russia wants to be there, and I'll show you the prophecy. We'll get to that in a little bit here. So will Russia annex more of the Ukraine? They'll take parts of it, so you can see the little square off to the lower left-hand side there. Basically, this is March of 2021. Russia was ready to go into the Ukraine. They didn't. Somebody cooled them down. But Russia is basically saying we can take it anytime we want to. And it's a death wish if Ukraine fights back. It's just a death wish. So now let's go way back and let's talk about the similarities so that you can see historically what's going on. So basically, Nebuchadnezzar is Babylon, and that's the lion, and the eagle's wings were supposedly his feathers that he wore for 7 years. Cyrus is the bear, which is also Russia, okay, and I'm arguing that the lion and the eagle's wings are Great Britain and the USA. I'm arguing that Alexander in Greece is the leopard, but also like Germany, and that Caesar and the beast are the Rome and final Rome. And I'm arguing that moving forward from 70 to 560, a 490-year time frame exactly to it, you have Justinian I, the last Roman die, in the midst of plagues. Then you have the schism of the legs breaking apart in 1050 due to Pope Benedict IX. Then in 1540, the Eastern Gate is sealed for only the Messiah to enter, and Suleiman the Magnificent, a Muslim fellow, sealed that, and plagues there again. And then the beast is probably due by 2030, but we'll see. So the main thing is I want you to see how this plays through, that the bear can be like the bear. Okay, and it has meaning and significance. I'm arguing that in 1967, you've got Israel giving back the Temple Mount, and these are the birth pangs of the Messiah. Seal 2 would be the Bush-Cheney Wars of 2003. That's like a hornet's nest. And then Seal 3, you can see it right now. Look around you at the food prices. Look around you at the floods, at the fires. Look at the sky at night, and look at the sun as it's orange, or the moon as it's orange, and you'll know that we're in the third seal. This is interesting, just so we can contend with the contention that many of the people out there say, oh, Russia is Gog and Magog, and the war, that's going to happen tomorrow. No, it's not. And if anything, it's going to happen at the end. This is Rebecca Sterling, back in 1999. She went through the players. She spoke quite effectively about Barack Obama and his family. And she didn't say that he was Gog, but it seems like he's Gog. Okay? Pope Francis seems to be the false prophet. The Antichrist is yet to be determined. General Green and his family. General Green died. Obama didn't go to his funeral. That was on Av 9 of 2014. She saw that funeral very vividly, and so the characters seem to be accurate from her. Now, she has MS, so she doesn't, and she's almost died a few times. So keep in mind that some of her personal ideas are not as accurate, but her visions that were typed down at that point in time are accurate from 1999. Very accurate. Okay, so once again, the beast is the Antichrist, and we haven't seen him yet. We know that Pope Francis is doing all he can to be the false prophet. We know Gog could be Barack Obama, and he hates Israel. There are other players. There's a king angel of the abyss from the fifth trumpet. There's 9-foot-tall horse-like locusts from the fifth trumpet again of chapter 9 of Revelation. Chapter 9 again of Revelation has the sixth trumpet, the second woe, and that has 200,000 or 200 million cavalry soldiers. Very interesting. And then you've got other leaders that are eaten by the birds. And then where do Putin and Erdogan fit in? Erdogan is from Turkey. I don't know. So once again, this 15-year-old boy back in 2015 said, after a near-death experience, that Obama is Gog. And I'm going to stick with that until somebody else proves me wrong. But whenever you hear the Gog Magog stuff, just remember Obama's probably the guy, not Putin. Okay? And Sadhu Sundar Severage and Chris Putnam and Tom Horn and other people have said the false prophet is Pope Francis, and he's doing his best in all of his activities to be a false prophet. Mark Biltz. We need to move on to him because we need to talk about the blood moon eclipses. And so he's citing Deuteronomy 30, which when the time arrives, that all these things have come upon you, both the blessing and the curse, which I have presented you, and you are there among the nations to which Adonai your God has driven you, then at last you will start thinking about what has happened to you, and you will return to Adonai your God and pay attention to what he has said, which will be exactly what I'm ordering you to do today, you and your children, with all your heart and with all your being, to love the Lord your God, and then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes and will have mercy on you and will gather you again for all the peoples where the Lord has scattered you. So that's happening right now. And I'm sorry I'm citing this. This is from Jim Baker. He interviewed Mark Biltz. So it's basically May 28th of 2021. New Shemitah is coming and what it could mean. And it's just interesting. Mark cites all sorts of Shemitahs. You just can dig through it. But the main thing is he's covering 70 years of Shemitahs and his blood moon eclipses and how the Six-Day War matches up with 66, 67. Yom Kippur War of 73. The Iranian nuclear reactor in 1980. Then First Intifada in 1987. And Israel-Jordan Peace Treaty in 1994. They all seem to match with their cycles. 2001 had a market crash. 2008 had a market crash. And Gaza War. The present day, 2015, you've got the blood moon eclipses. And then what happens now? I don't know, but he's arguing there's a Shemitah due right now. And so he's saying cycle 9, cycle 10, one or the other. So he's looking at 2022 or 2029 as important time frames. And keep in mind, there was the weird eclipse of the sun that marked a spot in Little Egypt of Illinois that happened in 2017 and 2024. So it's very interesting. The next things coming up are May 26th of 2021, which is already passed, November 19th of 2021, May 16th of 2022, and November 8th of 2022. And he's saying that these things are important because they're biblical. And I'll show you the verses in just a second here, that these are these Shemitah cycles. And Tom Horn says, Apophis, that some horrible asteroid is going to hit us in 2029. I don't know. But Biltz is doing this in patterns, and I appreciate his patterns research. And so he's saying, watch the Shemitahs to begin in 2022 or 2029. It's hard to argue with them. And watch the verses that match with each year. Very interesting to see that. So he's saying from Yom Kippur 1973 to Yom Kippur 2023, he's saying maybe that's a Jubilee. I argue against it, but I still love his research. I really, really do. So he's really arguing that this could be a Shemitah coming up very, very shortly here, and that things will be interesting as of Rosh Hashanah, which is September 7th of 2021. So just watch it. Just watch it. Let's see what happens. And Biltz is always saying, watch the festivals every year. Watch the Sabbath. Watch things. Moedim is the festivals. So he's also saying that the dragon will be playing in the Chinese year of the dragon will be 2023 to 2024. So very interesting. And the dragon is a factor in the end times. So he's also citing there was a 210-year gap in the Jewish calendar, which would mean that the year coming up would be 5783. So we're in 5781 right now. We'll start 5782 in just a month and a half. And so that would be the year 5993, add 210 years, and we're getting real close to 6,000. Very interesting. So, I'm sorry, that's Mark. So I want to, how many did I hit here? So basically, there are many blood moon eclipses, and I'm saying that the Strait of Dardanelles are important in all of those. And then what I want to show you is the specifics about those. So 32, 33, they're arguing that Stephen was martyred. Possibly, okay. Let's see here. There were martyr plagues 162, 163. These are all blood moon eclipse years. Charlemagne walls out the Muslims in 795 to 796. Okay, and the end of the caliph's reign in 842. Okay, fine. Byzantine victories. Schism begins in 860. That's very interesting. 1493, Columbus returns, discovers a new Jewish home, and the blood moons occur during that time frame. There's a quiet one, Suleiman the Magnificent. Remember we talked about Soleimani from Iran? Well, here's Suleiman the Magnificent, whom he's named after, and that was 1539, 1540. We'll discuss that more. And then you can see the other blood moon eclipses, and I'm arguing that Russia is prowling into Syria in 2014, 2015. On time. Those are all the time frames. So let's go back, way back, and let's just cover a little bit of the history. So in 528, Justinian I set up his code where he basically outlawed Judaism. And then 536 was the worst year in the history of mankind, as there was a volcanic eruption from Iceland or Greenland, and it came down and just took out Europe. Horrible. People died. And then plagues. So obviously, don't outlaw Judaism, and things will go well for you. There was no sun for 18 months, guys. Keeping that in mind. Then the Ice Age decade occurred from 536 to 546, and this was the time when he built the Hagia Sophia, which is very interesting, and the plague of Justinian 541. So basically, it was all over him. He built the Hagia Sophia, which is interesting, and that was a major Eastern Orthodox site. And then he died in 565, but really he died in 560. He was dying. And so bottom line is that was then eventually in 1453, the Eastern Orthodox Church fell at that point in time, and Turkey took it over, the Ottoman Empire. But I want you to be aware of those time frames just so you can see what's going on and how he came against Judaism, and the worst time in the history of the world occurred, and the Hagia Sophia was built too. So then the schism occurred in 1050, 1053 technically, but that was the East and the West, and you can see Russia is involved in it, and Russia would love to have things come together in the Eastern Orthodox to run things, but you have the Roman Catholic Church on the west side, and then the Eastern Orthodox on the other side, and you can see the various cultures and countries that were involved in that, and then you can see the Muslims coming up through their kingdoms, okay? And so as you had the schism occur, the Muslims came through and divided things, and you can see there's the schism, and there's where the Muslims came up. So they created their own mess and started the Crusades in 1099. Then we have to cover the prophecies. So Judah ben Samuel, and so he was a very important man in 1217. He was 77 years of age, and he prophesied the last 10 Jubilees. So they would kick off in 1517. Well, let's just read it. When the Ottoman Turks, who were already a power to be reckoned with in the Bosphorus, in the time of Judah ben Samuel, conquered Jerusalem in 1517, and they did. And that was Salem, who was the father of Suleiman the Magnificent. They will rule over Jerusalem for 8 Jubilees until 1917. And you can see Allenby walking in, Allah HaNavi, the prophet of Allah, walking into Jerusalem in 1917, there in the middle. Afterwards, Jerusalem will be a no man's land for 1 Jubilee. Well, that happened. And then in the 9th Jubilee in 2017, it will once again come back into the possession of the Jewish nation, which would signify the beginning of the Messianic end times. So that's Judah ben Samuel. It's very interesting prophecies. Keep in mind then, after that, in 1539, 1540, Suleiman the Magnificent was dreaming at night, and he couldn't understand why lions were chasing him. So he finally asked a friend, and the friend said, ask the lions what they want. And they said, send money down to Jerusalem. So he was up in Austria, winning wars, conquering Vienna almost, and then he sent money down to Jerusalem to rebuild the Eastern Gate for the Messiah, for only the Messiah. And there was an eclipse tetrad, not bloods, not blood moon eclipses, but an eclipse tetrad of 1539, 1540, as his men were rebuilding this and sealing the Eastern Gate. That's part of prophecy, people, and it matters. So then, moving forward, this is how we move into the current times with Russia and Turkey over the last, say, 400 years, okay? Where you've got Russia and Turkey hating the West. That's the most important thing. They work together. They hate each other. They've been at war for the last 400 or 500 years, as we'll show, but they hate the West even more. So they've been at war, the Ottomans versus Russia, in 1676, 1687, 1689, 1695, 1710, 1735, 1768, 1787, 1806, 1828, 1853, 1877, and World War I of 1914 through 17. They hate each other, but they hate the West more. So keep that in mind. That's really, really important. So basically, Russia wants warm weather ports. Okay, it's always economic. It's always oil or military or whatever else, but it's economic. And Turkey doesn't. Turkey is more. They're Turks. They fight hard and they don't like to lose any battles at all. And so Turkey just likes to thwart people. Okay, and they want to be the caliphate, the ruling empire in the world, and Russia kind of wants that too. There's Mother Russia. So just keep that in mind, that Russia and its allies declared war on the Ottomans in 1914, and then the Ottomans were conquered, and as a result of that, prophecy was upheld. So Russia versus Turkey. So once again, there's an escalation of hatred between Russia and Turkey, but yet they hate the West. They hate us more. So we need to be aware of the fact that Ankara, Turkey, is dependent on NATO, but they hate NATO. Okay, and so it's just odd bedfellows. So now here's the prophecy that I want you to see. So Russia has been pushing south towards Syria since 2000, since Putin started in 1999. Its goal has been to create a pipeline from Russia to Europe through Syria. Russia joined Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad in the civil war. So they've been working with Bashar al-Assad and his father since 1947. Okay, and the civil war occurred in 2011. Russia needed to push Ukraine out of the way first so that they could get closer. So they invaded Crimea as Nissan started in 2014 under the blood moons. Okay, that's 7 years ago, and then through that Tetrad they moved closer and closer, and they had to get through the Bosphorus. Okay, and then the Russian goal is to liberate the Hagia Sophia in Turkey at some point in time. And I think these blood moon Tetrads have meaning going forward. When you hear that the Russians have captured the city of Crimea, you should know that the times of the Messiah have started, that the steps are being heard. And when you hear that the Russians have reached the city of Constantinople, that's Istanbul, that's where the Hagia Sophia is, you should put on your Shabbos clothes and don't take them off, because that means the Messiah is about to come any minute. That's the Vilna Gaon. So he's the great one, Gaon of Vilna. And Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna, Eliyahu ben Shlomo Zalman. Wow, 77 again. Just note that, okay? So once again, in the time frames, you've got the Six-Day War, 67, 68, with the blood moon eclipses. Then 2017, right after the blood moon eclipses, you have Trump, the embassy to Jerusalem, and I argue that is a Jubilee year, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay. Oh, let's go back and just show you. 1917, 1967, 2017, and a big time actually in 1867 too. So then, was 2017 the Jubilee year? I don't know, but once again, there's the eclipses. Very interesting. So just be aware of that the Jubilees still are there, even if we keep them or don't. So, and the Shemitas are there too. So Biltz is right. So it's all coalescing on the Temple Mount. And we almost had an explosion there this week. So from July 22nd, Bennett tweeted just a simple little tweet, saying, freedom of worship for Jews on the Temple Mount. Well, it was a holy week for the Jews and the Muslims. Jews were already praying discreetly on the Temple Mount. You don't need to say what's already occurring. You just need to be quiet about it. But he tweeted it, and he almost kicked off a war. Trump had sanctioned an eventual change in the status quo. The Gaza war sparked in part by the Temple Mount violence, and Jordan fears losing special ties to the Temple Mount. Turkey wants those ties. Saudi Arabia wants those ties. So it's all very prophetic. Temple Mount control is critical. And so I want you to be aware that the Saudis want control over this. And so Mecca, Medina are controlled by Saudi Arabia. So why not the Alaska? Just keep it in mind. It's very political. And the most important thing is that Orthodox Jews want to pray on the Temple Mount. Now, this guy is not the Antichrist. So Nelson Walters said, oh, he's the Antichrist, and he won't take down this video. The problem is that's like putting a mark on this man's head that he's going to be killed by somebody. So you don't want to do that kind of stuff. He's just an Orthodox Jew that wants to pray on the Temple Mount. He's not the Antichrist. And you shouldn't, people like Nelson should know better than this, but he can't help himself. He trips over himself to say the wrong thing all the time. So it's a death sentence to him. And so Orthodox Jews want to pray on the Temple Mount. So at least my friends from Cry from Zion are saying, hey, this is wrong. This is a man that keeps Torah. He's not the Antichrist. And the verses from 2 Thessalonians 2 are, when the man who avoids Torah comes, that's the Antichrist. The adversary will give him the power to work all kinds of false miracles, signs, and wonders. He will enable him to deceive. So he works against the Torah. Well, this man works for the Torah, so he's a good guy. Okay, so don't label him the Antichrist. If there's a guy that comes along as the Antichrist, don't you think I'll tell you? Okay, and so watch the Abraham Accords. Rather than individual people, watch the Abraham Accords and see what goes on. That's the most important thing to watch. That's Daniel 9, 7 through 24 through 27. More critical. And one more thing, just to state it one more time, Putin and the religious leaders from Russia really value the Hagia Sophia. So when Erdogan took the Hagia Sophia over and changed it from a museum into a mosque, it ticked off Eastern Orthodoxy. It did. Okay. And so they're maybe going to build another replica of the Hagia Sophia someplace else. So keep in mind, this really ticked some people off. It's Turkey's internal affair. Well, Russia has all the bombs right now, and Turkey is ticking them off. So they want that back. That was built as a cathedral 1,500 years ago, and the museum status is all right, but not as a mosque. And that's Erdogan just always ticking people off, and Putin did not like that. We're in the birth pangs, people. You know that. The Great Tribulation, or the tribulation, is coming eventually. The Great Tribulation will occur after that. We're just in the birth pangs. We're in the seals right now. The seals look like the birth pangs, which look like Matthew 24. We're in seal 3, I truly believe. And then you've got seal 4 is 4 different plagues. And then you've got seal 5, seal 6. Those are yet to come. You need clean garments. You do. And what will you wear? Well, you should be repenting and getting your garments clean, because we're getting real close to this wedding. Be blessed. Putin is not Gog from Magog. Russia is important, but it's a financial and military reason that they're important in the end times right now. Putin is not your Antichrist. He's not your Gog. He's just a player. And so just watch him and be aware of the prophecies. Be aware of the prophecies. Good night. God bless. Bye.